Hello everyone, welcome to another lecture of general medicine where I make a dreadful, boring, long topic easy to learn in under 10 to 15 minutes. And for that, I shall be referring to a resource known as Mind Maps by Medi. Watch this video till the end because I am going to show you a sample chapter from the book. So let's get into the lecture for today, which is diabetes mellitus. What exactly is diabetes? Why does it happen? How does it progress? And what is the treatment? All of this will be covered in this current video. So let's get started. To start any topic, we need to know the introduction definition for the topic. So the introduction of diabetes mellitus is that it is a metabolic disease which is characterized by hyperglycemia. Hyper means more and glycemia means sugar. So high sugar levels is what diabetes is all about. It occurs due to absolute or relative deficiency of insulin. Absolute deficiency will mean that actually the insulin is low. Relative deficiency will mean that level of insulin is fine, but its action is not happening as it should. So that creates a relative deficiency at the site of action, both of which lead to uncontrolled glucose in the body, leading to hyperglycemia. A quick fact is that India is known as the diabetes capital of the world because of high prevalence of diabetes mellitus. Now, there are two common types of diabetes, which is type 1 and type 2. Type 1 is insulin dependent and type 2 is non-insulin dependent. So type 1 is usually in juvenile state and is ketosis prone, whereas type 2 is seen as adult onset and in mature stages. Now both these types are related to the quantity and the presence of insulin. So the causes of both these types will also be different. If we see the causes of type 1 diabetes, it is mostly an immune-mediated destruction of the insulin-producing pancreatic beta cells. So pancreatic cells are alpha and beta. These beta cells are responsible for producing insulin. If these cells get destructed actually, that is going to lead to decreased insulin. Now these cells can be destructed maybe by the immune body itself. So immune-mediated destruction is type 1 diabetes mellitus. Even genetic cause, Cushing syndrome, hypothyroidism, wherein thyroid is less, the body is functioning less, and the metabolism is slow. All these can lead to type 1 diabetes, where actually the insulin is less. Viral infections like mumps, Epstein-Barr virus, even diet deficiencies and stress can lead to a decreased insulin secretion, leading to type 1 diabetes mellitus. Other than this, if we talk about type 2, which is actually not dependent on the insulin, it can be as genetics related to obesity and poor lifestyle or sedentary lifestyle. So this is how you can differentiate type 1 to type 2 on the basis of cause. But that alone is not enough to differentiate the two types. But if we want to differentiate it in detail, so this is how the pathophysiology of both of these is differentiated. For example, in type 1, there is genetic predisposition and environmental factors, both of which lead to the formation of autoantigens, which act on the insulin-producing beta cells of the pancreas. So autoantibodies are going to be present, which lead to immune-mediated destruction of the beta cells. This leads to an autoimmune disease, which causes destruction of beta cells, and insulin deficiency is there, which leads to type 1 diabetes. So this is a pretty much straight mechanism. If there is no cell, there is no insulin. So how is type 2 diabetes mellitus actually happening? Coming to the first organ which can be involved is pancreas. Either the pancreas is secreting less insulin, or the beta cells are going under apoptosis, or the beta cell mass is less, all of which means less insulin acting and more glucose in the body. So hyperglycemia occurs. Secondly, if the brain is not picking up the action of satiety, which is the feeling of fullness, the patient might go on eating and there is increased glucose in the body, which is hyperglycemia again. Next, moving on to the organ system, which is gut. So in the gut, there is an impaired incretin effect. Now what happens is that when we have food, ideally, the insulin increases and that is going to absorb the food glucose and lead to less glucose present in the blood. But in these cases where the situation is not normal, there is going to be an increased amount of glucagon and the insulin is going to be less. So that is going to lead to an impaired incretin effect, wherein the food is not getting absorbed, the glucose is high in the blood and the insulin is not acting as it should. So this leads to a hyperglycemic situation. Coming to the next organ, which will be liver. In these cases, the cells have gone into an insulin resistance situation. Therefore, the hepatic glucose output increases. The glucose is not getting metabolized even by the liver. Therefore, there will be hyperglycemia. If the muscles get involved, there is again insulin resistance, and the muscles or the cells in the muscles are not going to take up the glucose. So there will be decreased glucose uptake, which leads to excess glucose being present in the blood. Therefore, again, hyperglycemic situation will be there. Lastly, if we talk about adipocytes, normally the insulin which is present, it breaks down fat cells and fatty acids, which decreases the presence of fatty acids in the body. But if the insulin is less in amount, the fatty acids will not be absorbed or metabolized. Therefore, the circulating adipocytes will also increase, which leads to a situation of hyperlipidemia. So this is how type 2 diabetes mellitus manifests and progresses pathophysiologically. Now, after we know how the disease is progressing, it's important to know what the disease looks like. So what are the clinical features of diabetes mellitus? The 3 Ps which are present is polyphagia, polydipsia, and polyuria. Polyphagia means the patient eats more. Polydipsia, the patient feels thirsty because there is excess production of urine, which is polyuria. So more urine means more fluid is being excreted. Therefore, the patient is going to feel thirsty. So these are the 3 Ps which are present as clinical features in diabetes. And there is slow healing of wounds because the sugar content is high. The cells are not going to repair as they should. And lastly, there is going to be unexpected changes in weight. It can either increase or decrease depending on the metabolism of the sugar in the body. Along with the clinical features, what you need to know are the dental considerations. So what happens if a patient is diabetic and comes for a dental treatment? There is going to be delayed healing after any surgery which you perform. The patient is going to have generalized periodontitis because the body's soft tissue is going to be affected and it is going to be inflamed. So these are the manifestations which are going to be present. And also, whenever you're performing dental treatment, it's important to take a history for diabetes mellitus, and that if the patient has consumed and if the patient has taken his normal dose of insulin, because during the treatment, the patient might get a hypoglycemic attack due to anxiety and fear. So the clinic must be equipped enough for enough sources of sugar in case the patient does go into hypoglycemia. So these are the dental considerations which you must know. After we know the clinical features of a disease, we need to come to a confirmatory diagnosis which is performed by lab investigations. So what are the investigations which are done in the case of diabetes mellitus? The first and the foremost is the diagnostic criteria, which is going to indicate a positive diagnosis. For that, the fasting plasma glucose level, if more than 126, is considered to be diabetes mellitus. Secondly, if the random blood glucose is more than 200, plus there are some hyperglycemia symptoms like the 3 Ps, that shows a positive situation. Lastly, oral glucose tolerance test is done at 2 hours, which shows a plasma glucose level of more than 200. So the patient is considered to be a positive patient for diabetes mellitus. Other than this, the 3-month sugar or the overall analysis of 3 months blood glucose control level, we do the HbA1c test, which more than 6.5 means a situation of diabetes mellitus. For the confirmatory diagnostic tests, we do fasting glucose, random glucose, oral glucose tolerance test, which is done by giving 75 milligram of glucose load, and then the test is done after 2 hours. Urine test shows the presence of glucose and ketone bodies in the urine, and HbA1c is also going to be increased, which shows the glucose control over the last 8 to 12 weeks. So this is how you can come to a confirmatory diagnosis and decide how much dose of insulin and glycemia control drugs are required to manage this patient. After you have done the confirmatory diagnosis, we need to come towards the treatment. So the treatment can also be decided according to the basis of HbA1c. Normal, which is considered to be less than 5.7. Pre-diabetic or borderline situation is 5.7 to 6.4. Diabetes is more than 6.5, and beyond control, or the patients who have to be on treatment, is up to when the situation is beyond 7. The treatment involves diet correction and lifestyle correction. Diet must include complex carbohydrates and not processed ones. Oral anti-diabetic drugs are given like glibenclamide, glipizide, and metformin, because these are going to increase the sugar uptake by the cells. Insulin can be given, which can be short-acting, intermediate, and long-acting. And lifestyle modifications along with exercise and reduction of obesity are advised to the patient, because all of those are going to increase the metabolism of the body, increase the glucose uptake by the cells, therefore decrease the hyperglycemic situation. Now, if the treatment is not provided correctly, adequately, or the patient doesn't take the treatment timely, there are going to be certain complications which can occur. The complications due to increased glucose level can be stroke of the brain, retinopathy in the eyes, candidiasis because of the fungal growth of the organisms, angina and myocardial infarction, nephropathy in the kidney with a feature of microalbuminuria, peripheral neuropathy, and diabetic foot, which is a non-healing foot. Ulcers can be formed and they are not going to heal easily. So these are the complications which can occur. Two very important complications which manifest as a separate disease-like situation are diabetic ketoacidosis and hyperglycemic hyperosmolar state, or HHS. So if we start to study about diabetic ketoacidosis, this is an important manifestation which can occur in the patients with diabetes mellitus. So what happens is that it is a serious complication which presents as a medical emergency and is mostly seen in type 1 diabetes mellitus, but can be seen in type 2 also. The causes include stress and lack of compliance to treatment. Even infection, trauma, and myocardial infarction can lead to stress on the body, thereby leading to diabetic ketoacidosis. So what exactly happens in diabetic ketoacidosis, or what is the pathophysiology? That when the insulin in the body decreases, there is a compensatory increase in glucagon and cortisol because the body is in a state of stress. This leads to not glucose uptake, but gluconeogenesis. So more glucose is going to be formed. This glucose is then going to produce its byproducts, which is going to cause lipolysis and also formation of ketone bodies. These ketone bodies are going to decrease the pH in the body and lead to metabolic acidosis. Hence the term diabetic ketoacidosis. Now, when the blood glucose is going to be high, this glucose is also going to enter the urine. So the urine is going to extract more of fluid so as to compensate the increased amount of electrolyte in the urine. This extraction of fluid is going to lead to dehydration in the body and the patient is going to feel thirsty. So this is how diabetic ketoacidosis manifests. The biochemical abnormalities in relation to these will be hyperglycemia, which can be around 250 to 300 milligram. It leads to osmotic diuresis, which leads to dehydration and electrolytic loss. Ketosis will be present because of production of ketone bodies and increased lipolysis in the liver, as I told. Lastly, there is going to be metabolic acidosis because of ketone bodies. The investigations which you perform and are going to be confirmatory are high plasma blood glucose with increased level of potassium in compensation of the electrolyte which is being lost. There is going to be less sodium because the urine is going to attract more of ions and the presence of sodium in the body is going to decrease. The urine is going to contain less of toxins and more of glucose. So there is going to be excess of urea and nitrogen in the body, which creates a situation known as azotemia. Then arterial blood gas is also going to lead to metabolic acidosis because excess of metabolic acidosis means there is going to be respiratory issue also, because if pH in the body is low, the lungs are going to try to compensate for it. To detect the infections, you can do urine and blood culture test because sometimes bacterial infection can also lead to this problem. Blood counts and X-ray test can rule out any infections which can be present, and ECG can show if the heart is fine or not. That is just a compliance test so that you can rule out any other disease which can be present. What will be the treatment? The patient is going to be hospitalized. We give intravenous saline to treat the dehydration. Intravenous infusion of regular insulin is given to control the hyperglycemic situation. Potassium and phosphate supplementation is done to restore the balance of the disturbed electrolytes. Sodium bicarbonate is given if the pH of the body is less than 7 because most of the cells are going to stop functioning at the baseline level. And lastly, antibiotics can be given if any infection is found. Coming to the second complication, which is hyperglycemic hyperosmolar state. What means that glucose is more, osmolarity is also more, means ions are more in the body. What happens over here is that insulin is present, but it is not present as much as it should be. So the glucose level in the body is going to be increased, but it is not that much that ketosis will be present. So ketosis will be present in less quantity over here, but insulin deficiency will be there, which leads to increased glucose. This increased glucose is also going to come into urine, which leads to fluid extraction from the body and leads to dehydration. So this is the common manifestation which you are going to see in HHS. So it is insidious in onset. The patient doesn't really get to know what's happening. There is going to be severe hyperglycemia. And since dehydration is happening, so the fluid from the body is going to be expelled more along with the ions so that the urine which is produced has a good osmolarity. That is going to lead to a differentiated and deranged osmolarity of the body. So this leads to hyperosmolarity, dehydration, absence of ketosis, as I said. Now the cause can be infection, non-compliance to drugs of hyperglycemia control, stroke and alcohol. What are the investigations? It's almost same, which is high plasma glucose level, plasma osmolarity increases, pH also increases because ions are more in amount. Now, what is going to be the treatment? Fluid replacement for dehydration, insulin administration, but it will be required less because there is some amount of insulin, but the function is slightly less. And lastly, potassium and phosphate can be supplemented if iron electrolyte balance is not normal. So this is how you can compile the complications along with the whole disease of diabetes mellitus in just one video. Once you watch this video, read it from any book or even the mind maps book, you must go through some questions so that you can know what type of questions are going to be asked from you in Viva or in NEET. For example, if we see this flashcard, what is the first line drug for type 2 diabetes mellitus? So the first drug is metformin, which is the hyperglycemic control drug. If you solve an MCQ, which acute complication is commonly seen in type 1 diabetes mellitus? Hyperthyroidism, ketoacidosis, hypertension, renal stone. So as we studied, it is diabetic ketoacidosis. So if you just flip over the MCQ, you're going to see the answer along with explanation. Now you would ask where to get these questions from. So they are easily available on the app of Medi Go, which is available for iOS as well as Android users. And I told you in the starting of the video, I'm going to show you the mind maps book for general medicine. This is the book which I'm talking about. And if you consider the topic of diabetes mellitus, this is how all the charts which we just studied are going to be mentioned in the booklet. So you can get this for yourself from Amazon, Flipkart, Dental Cart, or even the website of Medi Go. And if you like such videos to read the topics of general medicine or all subjects of BDS, do subscribe our channel on YouTube and keep watching for more such useful videos.